Wow. Okay, so you really dug deep for this deep dive, huh?
Yeah, this is a lot.
We got court cases, investigative journalism, even some fact-checking databases.
Looks like someone's been busy.
You deficiently gave us a treasure trove of info on Donald Trump.
It's amazing. It really does show how much attention he's gotten over the years.
Decades. Even
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot to cover.
Ah,
But we're not trying to rehash every little thing.
yeah, that'd take forever.
Our goal here is to find the most important patterns,
The stuff that really matters, yeah.
the things that made a real impact and are still affecting how we see him.
Exactly. And I think focusing on those patterns can help you understand what he does in the future, help you make your own mind up about him.
Yeah, help you form your own opinions.
Right.
So I think maybe the best place to start would be before the whole politics thing.
Before he was president?
Yeah, back when most people just knew him from The Apprentice.
Okay, that makes sense.
But even then,
Yeah.
back then, there were some pretty serious accusations about him.
Oh, yeah. Even way back then, you had contestants and staff members saying he acted really inappropriately on set.
Really bad stuff.
Some of it was sexist, some of it racist. Sounds like there was a pattern even back then.
Like how he was always commenting on women's bodies, asking guys if he'd put the female contestants, stuff like that.
Yeah, and apparently he wanted the women to dress more provocatively, really short dresses and low necklines, that kind of thing.
And this was like on a TV set. This is their workplace.
Exactly, and that's what's interesting to me. It's like this pattern of treating women like objects and not respecting boundaries that seems to have followed him through his whole career.
I see what you mean. It keeps popping up.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump ahead a bit to the Access Hollywood tape.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, where he brags about grabbing women. Huge moment in the 2016 election.
I think everyone remembers where they were when they first heard that tape.
And that tape, it actually came up in a couple of his court cases, which is interesting.
It is. The E. Jean Carroll case, which we'll talk about more in a bit, they actually played it for the jury.
They did, but it didn't come up in the hush money trial, did it?
Nope. The judge decided it wasn't admissible for that one.
Really? Even though the judge even said it was relevant.
Yeah, apparently he was worried about it being too prejudicial for the jury in that specific case.
So they heard it for one case, but not the other.
It's complicated, right?
That's the law for...
It just shows how tricky it can be to use evidence like that in court. They gotta be super careful.
Yeah, so much to consider.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of complicated, the E. Jean Carroll case,
Oh, yeah.
I gotta be honest, some parts of that were hard to follow.
Totally get that. The jury found him liable for both sexual abuse and defamation, but not for rape.
Okay.
But, and this is important, this was based on New York law at the time.
It's so specific.
Law is all about the fine print, right?
But I remember a lot of people were confused about that.
Yeah, it definitely caused some confusion, so the judge actually had to clarify it later.
What do you say?
Well, he said even though they didn't call it rape, the verdict still basically meant Trump forced himself on Carroll.
So even though the word wasn't there, the meaning was?
Right. Specifically, he said it implied he digitally penetrated her.
Oh, wow.
So, complicated as it was a big win for Carroll. It wasn't just her word against his.
Right, there was other stuff too.
She had witnesses, people who could back up what she was saying, and they even had experts talking about how trauma affects people.
Oh, to explain why she maybe didn't remember every detail perfectly.
Exactly. And get this, they even had people who worked at Bergdorf Goodman at the time.
The store where it supposedly happened?
Yeah, and they even used the layout of the store to back up her story.
That's attention to detail.
They really did their homework.
Okay, well then there's the hush money trial.
Where he actually got convicted.
Yeah, guilty on all 34 felony counts.
Crazy, right? First time a former U.S. president has ever been found guilty of a crime.
It's unbelievable when you think about it.
Those charges, it was all about falsifying business records, basically to cover up those hush money payments he made during the 2016 campaign.
Trying to keep it quiet.
Right, and what this case shows is that even after you're not president anymore, you can still be in legal trouble.
Especially since the judge didn't buy his argument about presidential immunity.
Nope, that could be huge for any future cases against him.
Yeah, the judge basically said that former presidents aren't above the law when it comes to things they did for personal reasons, not official duties.
It sets a precedent.
Yeah, we're in uncharted territory here for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, so another thing that comes up a lot with Trump is racism. Accusations of racism, I meant.
Oh, yeah, that's been going on forever.
Even before he was in politics.
Way back to the 70s.
I know about that case. The Justice Department sued him and his father for housing discrimination.
Right, saying they wouldn't rent to black tenants.
It's a serious charge.
It is. And then there were those ads he took out in the newspaper, the ones about the Central Park Five,
Oh, yeah, those were bad.
calling for the death penalty for those 5 young men. They were all Black and Latino, accused of attacking a jogger.
Wrongly accused, too.
Exactly. Later DNA evidence cleared them completely, but he wanted them executed.
It's scary how his words can have such a big impact.
That's the thing about words, right? They have power.
And it's not just those two examples. There's the whole birther thing with President Obama, the way he talks about immigrants, that fine people on both sides comment after Charlottesville.
Oh man, so many examples.
It makes you wonder how much damage those kinds of words do, even if he doesn't always get in legal trouble for them.
Yeah, even if it's not illegal, those kinds of words can change how people think, how they see the world.
It normalizes hate.
Exactly, and that's a problem.
Okay, let's talk about the big lie now.
All right.
That whole thing about the 2020 election being stolen, him just repeating it over and over,
That's been a big problem.
more than just spreading lies, right?
Way more. It's about making people lose faith in our democracy, making them think the whole system is rigged.
And we saw how that played out, especially with his supporters.
They believed him, and it's hard not to see the connection between that and what happened on January 6th.
That attack on the Capitol.
He might not have told them to do it directly, but his words created the environment for it to happen.
Yeah, set the stage.
And speaking of words, what about how all the social media companies dealt with him?
It was wild. For years, they let him say whatever he wanted. Free reign. But then they started cracking down, fact checks, warnings, even deleting some of his posts.
And eventually, they even suspended his accounts.
It was unprecedented.
Totally. They were trying to figure out how to handle him, how to balance free speech with protecting people from harm.
It was tough. They didn't always get it right. And there was a lot of debate about what they were doing.
Oh, yeah. People had strong opinions on both sides.
It shows how complicated things are in the digital age. How to draw those lines.
No easy answers.
Speaking of complicated, the level of division and polarization during his presidency,
It was off the charts, the worst it's ever been. Way worse than just disagreeing about policies.
he got personal.
He intentionally used words to inflame people, targeted minorities, his opponents, even the media.
Created a climate of hostility that went way beyond normal political debate.
Yeah, it was toxic.
Okay, then we have the whole corruption thing.
The scandals.
Emoluments, business conflicts, nepotism, the pardons he gave out.
It was one thing after another, hard to keep track of it all.
The main thing is, all those allegations made people lose trust in him.
It became impossible to tell if he was acting for the good of the country or just for himself.
That's a big problem.
Yeah, that suspicion hung over everything he did.
Makes you question everything.
Yeah,
Which brings us to manipulation.
you get master at it.
Psychological manipulation,
Yeah.
manipulating elections, even something called metapragmatic gaslighting.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Can you explain that one? I'm not even sure what it means.
Well, it's basically about controlling the whole context of communication, not just lying, but creating a whole fake story, and controlling how people see information.
To make it seem like he's always right.
Yeah, and it can be really effective. People start to doubt their own perceptions.
It's like he's trying to bend reality itself.
Exactly. He's amazing at controlling the narrative, making people see things his way.
Okay, so now let's talk about his second administration,
Round 2.
who he's chosen to work with, and it seems like the most important thing to him is loyalty.
For sure. Look at his inner circle. People like Susie Wiles, Stephen Miller, Dan Scavino. They're all known for being completely loyal to him.
The ride or die crew.
Yeah, and they're in some very powerful positions.
But then there's these other picks, the ones that raise some red flags.
Oh, yeah, like Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., those guys.
They've been accused of some pretty bad stuff, or they have some pretty out there views.
It makes you wonder what direction he's taking things in this second term. Are these the best people to help him run the country?
Or are they just going to make things worse?
We'll have to wait and see.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah,
It makes you think about his priorities, what's really important.
Yeah, what his goals are.
Okay, so this next topic is sensitive, and we need to be careful here. But with the E. Jean Carroll case and all the other accusations, can we call Donald Trump a rapist?
That's tough. That's going beyond just the legal definition.
I know, but the jury did find him liable for sexual abuse.
They did, and how they described the assault, it sounds like what a lot of people would call rape.
But they didn't actually use that word in their verdict.
Right, so it's a gray area, it's open to interpretation.
So we have this legal finding, but it doesn't say rape, even though it sounds like it.
Exactly, it's complicated, and that's why it's such a sensitive issue.
We have the legal facts, the accusations, And in the end, it's up to each person to decide what they think.
To think about what it means ethically and for society.
It's a serious question, and it makes you think about how we deal with sexual assault as a whole.
It's a conversation we need to be having, for sure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. From his early days to his second term as president, it's a lot to take in.
It is, but remember, this is just the start of your own exploration.
Right, we're just giving you a starting point.
We're here to help you navigate all of this, but it's your journey to understand.
So what are some of the most important things for our listener to remember so far?
Well, the first thing is that Donald Trump is incredibly polarizing. People either love him or hate him. There's not a lot of middle ground.
Yeah, the source material you sent us definitely shows that articles that praise him as a leader, others that say he's dangerous, it's really divided.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to be critical of the information you see. Don't just believe everything you read.
Think for yourself.
Look at all sides of the story, weigh the evidence, and come to your own conclusions.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right. If something doesn't make sense or it seems like there's more to the story, dig deeper, learn more.
The more you know, the better equipped you are to understand all of this.
We're here to help, but it's your journey. You're in control.
That's a good way to put it.
We're all learning here, especially when it comes to someone as complicated as Donald Trump.
Okay, so let's take a little break here to gather our thoughts.
Take a breather.
When we come back, we're going to dig deeper into some of the specifics from your source material, including all that fact-checking data you sent.
That'll be fun.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back, and I gotta say, my head is still spinning from all those false statements. I mean, wow.
It's a lot.
You sent over these fact-checking databases, and it's just mind-blowing.
The Washington Post, for example, they found over 30,000 false or misleading things Trump said just during his presidency.
30,000. That's like 21 lies a day.
Pretty much.
It's hard to even imagine. Where do you even start with something like that?
It's overwhelming, right? I think it helps to look at specific examples, not just because they're shocking, but to see the patterns, how it all connects.
You have to understand the bigger picture.
Exactly, because all that misinformation, it has an impact.
Okay, well, I remember there was a lot of talk about those tariffs, how he kept saying China was paying billions because of his policies.
Right, he said it over and over, but it wasn't true at all.
What was the truth then?
Studies showed that it was actually U.S. businesses and consumers who are paying the price. Those tariffs ended up costing us a lot.
So not the big win he made it out to be?
Nope, not even close.
And then there's the whole thing about defeating ISIS in 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah, he claimed victory so many times, said it happened on his watch really fast.
Like it was a piece of cake.
But that's not how it went down at all. It was years of work, multiple presidents, international cooperation, the whole thing.
It makes you think. It's one thing to spin a story, but to just say things that are completely false over and over.
It's hard to know what to believe.
It makes you question everything he says.
And that's the real danger here. When a leader can't be trusted, it erodes trust in everything, in the news, in the government. It's a slippery slope.
Makes it hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Exactly. And then people start believing crazy conspiracy theories. They lose faith in the system.
It's like a constant attack on truth itself.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's not just the lies. It's how he reacts when people try to correct him. How he treats whistleblowers, for example.
Oh, man, he hates whistleblowers.
Called them spies, threatened them. It was scary.
Remember that person who spoke up about the Ukraine phone call?
The one that led to his first impeachment.
Yeah, Trump went after them hard.
Tried to discredit them, ruin their reputation.
And it made other people afraid to come forward, even if they saw something wrong.
Who wants to go through that?
And it wasn't just individuals he targeted. He went after the whole system designed to protect whistleblowers.
He got rid of several inspectors general, right?
Yeah, those are the people who are supposed to keep things honest, investigate misconduct in the government.
He didn't want anyone looking over his shoulder.
It seemed like he was trying to get rid of anyone who could hold him accountable.
That's chilling.
It is. It's like he wanted to be above the law.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a bit. Talk about his relationships with women.
Okay.
I know we touched on the sexual misconduct allegations earlier, but I think it's important to dig deeper.
There's a lot there. Accusations that go back decades.
Women saying he made unwanted advances, groped them, said inappropriate things. The same kind of stories over and over.
And these weren't just random strangers. These were women he met in professional settings, on the set of The Apprentice, in business meetings, even at his own properties.
It paints a disturbing picture of how he views women. especially in a work environment.
And remember those testimonies we talked about in the E. Jean Carroll case? Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stoynoff?
They both shared their stories.
And what they described, it sounded a lot like what Carroll said happened to her.
It adds to the pattern.
Exactly. It wasn't just one accusation, it was multiple women saying similar things.
And even though he denies everything, it's hard to ignore the sheer number of allegations and how similar they are.
It makes you wonder about how he sees women if he thinks he can just do whatever he wants.
Like they're not real people, just objects.
And that attitude, it doesn't seem to stop with women. It's how he treats everyone. In business, in politics, even on the world stage.
He always wants to be in control.
Domination is the name of the game.
Okay, so we've talked about his relationship with the truth, how he deals with criticism, how he treats women, and this constant need for control. It's a lot to process.
It's heavy stuff for sure.
But we're just scratching the surface here.
There's always more to uncover.
And as we keep going, I think it's important to remember that this isn't just about Trump the person.
What do you mean?
His story, it reflects bigger things happening in our society, in America.
Oh, I see what you're saying. He's like a symptom of something larger.
Exactly. Think about all the things that helped him get elected. The economic anxieties, the racial tensions, people losing faith in institutions.
Those are all already there, brewing under the surface.
And he tapped into them, used them to his advantage.
He didn't create those problems, but he made them worse. He exploited them.
And that's why understanding Trump is so important. It's not just about him. It's about understanding ourselves, our country, the problems we face.
It's like holding up a mirror to society.
Okay, so as we move on, what are some key things our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, the most important thing is to remember that there are many different views on Trump and his legacy. The sources you sent, they show how divided people are.
Some people love him, some hate him.
Exactly, and that's why you have to be open-minded, look at all sides of the story, and don't let anyone tell you what to think.
Do your own research, form your own opinions.
And if you disagree with something we say, that's okay.
We want to hear your thoughts.
That's what makes this so interesting. It's a conversation, a collaboration.
I like that. Okay, so before we move on to the next part, I want to go back to something you said about his second term, about the people he's chosen to work with.
Okay, what about them?
Specifically those controversial figures like Matt Gaetz and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Ah, yes, those guys. It's interesting because while Trump values loyalty above all else, some of his choices have raised some eyebrows.
Like Matt Gaetz, he's been a big supporter of Trump, but he's also been caught up in some pretty serious scandals, accusations of sexual misconduct, that kind of thing.
It makes you wonder about Trump's judgment. Is he willing to overlook anything as long as someone is loyal to him?
It's a red flag for sure.
And then there's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., part of that famous Democratic family, but he's known for some pretty out there views on vaccines.
He's anti-vax, right?
Yeah, and Trump put him on a commission about vaccine safety.
That's a strange choice, to put it mildly.
It seems like he's prioritizing loyalty over expertise in some cases, and that could have big consequences for how things are run.
It's something to watch for sure.
Definitely, these choices tell us a lot about what Trump cares about, how he approaches governing.
Okay, well, this has been really eye-opening so far. We've gone from the campaign trail to the White House, even into the courtroom.
It's been a whirlwind.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh yeah, we've barely scratched the surface of all this information.
And in the next part, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind this whole time. Trump's legacy.
The big question.
What will he be remembered for? How will his actions shape the future? What's his lasting impact?
Those are the questions historians will be debating for years to come.
And we're going to try to answer them.
We'll use what we've learned so far, look at the long-term effects of his presidency, and think about what it all means for the future.
So until then, keep those questions in mind. We'll be back soon to finish our deep dive into Donald Trump and his impact on America. Okay, so we've been through a lot with this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
Businesses, presidency, court cases, all the scandals. It's almost too much.
Definitely a lot to take in.
But now that we're, wrapping things up, I think we need to zoom out a bit.
See the bigger picture.
Think about what this all means.
Okay, I'm with you.
What does Donald Trump's story tell us about America, about our democracy?
That's the big question, isn't it?
He broke all the rules, did things no one expected, even got charged with crimes.
And people are still obsessed with him.
He's still a major force in politics. It's crazy.
It really shows you the cracks in our system, how vulnerable we are.
Our media, our political parties, even just our shared sense of reality, it all took a hit.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how easy it was to spread misinformation, how quickly people lost trust in everything.
And the division. It's like we're living in two different worlds now.
And that's a big part of his legacy. He didn't create the division, but he definitely made it worse.
He used it to his advantage.
He appealed to people who felt forgotten, left behind, but he also stoked their anger, their resentment.
And those words, they had real consequences.
Yeah, they did.
Hate crimes went up, political violence, basic democratic norms that we always took for granted, they started to crumble.
It's like he ripped open a wound that was already there, and now we're stuck trying to figure out how to heal it.
How to bring people back together, how to fix the damage.
It's a big challenge, especially since he's still out there, still a powerful figure.
He's not going away anytime soon.
His legal troubles, the investigations, who knows what he'll do next, maybe even run for office again.
It's like we're just waiting to see what happens next, holding our breath.
But even beyond that, I think about the long-term impact of all of this. What will Trumpism mean for the future?
Will this style of politics become the new normal?
It's a question historians will be asking for a long time, but from what we've learned, I think there are some important lessons here.
Like what?
Well, first of all, we need a strong, independent media more than ever.
Yeah, we saw how easily lies can spread, especially online.
The press is crucial for keeping people honest, for giving people the facts.
Facts matter.
They do. And secondly, we got to figure out how to make our democratic institutions stronger, less vulnerable to this kind of manipulation.
Reform our elections, protect voting rights, make sure the law applies to everyone equally, no matter who they are or what party they belong to.
Exactly. No one's above the law.
And lastly, I think we need to talk to each other, really talk about the things that divide us.
Have those tough conversations.
Listen to each other, try to understand where the other side is coming from, find some common ground.
It sounds so simple, but it's so hard right now.
Everyone's so polarized, so quick to judge, stuck in their own bubbles.
Yeah, but we gotta try. We can't just ignore the problems that led to all of this.
We have to face them head on.
I agree.
So as we finish up this deep dive, I'm feeling a mix of emotions.
What do you mean?
Hopeful, because I think we can learn from this, we can make things better,
We have to.
but also scared, because I know it's going to be a long, hard road.
It will be, but I have faith in our democracy. We've been through tough times before, and we always come out stronger.
And doing this deep dive, it's reminded me how important it is to be informed, to learn, to be engaged.
Knowledge is power.
It's not enough to just know there's a problem. We have to understand it, talk about it, and try to fix it.
And that's what this is all about, this conversation. It's just the beginning.
Right? It's up to all of us to keep learning, keep asking questions, keep talking to each other.
Keep the conversation going.
Because in the end, our democracy depends on us, on an informed and engaged citizenry.
We, the people.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you something to think about, a better understanding of Trump's complicated story.
It's been a journey.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new topic. Until then, keep exploring.